But thanks for saying that. How are you, Mike?
Doing fine, thank you. How are you?
Good, I'm doing great.
I'm going to email you to get together for coffee again.
Love it. Hi.
We notice you here. But,
You've got a little something right here on your lip. Got it.
okay. We love the long tables. And as opposed to the round tables. Yeah, so
You prefer that.
Please try to make them set it up this way.
The reason they do it is that there's an activity that comes in right after that needs the round tables. I know, but that they would have to tear this down and put in round tables.
They used to do that.
Well, I think everybody is very, very busy at this point. So I get your point. I think we all prefer the tables. But,
Okay.
we're trying to be good citizens too. How the heck with that?
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. So nice to see everybody. It's been called to my attention that everybody prefers these rectangular tables to the round tables. So the reason for the round tables is that there's an activity that comes in immediately after, and it's much more conducive to the purposes of that activity to have round tables. So I know it's not as enjoyable as being together in one unit, I get that, but lots and lots going on here these days, and we just have to be able to do our thing and accommodate the next ones. But I do appreciate the comment that was made to me. If you've got a concern, bring it to me if you feel like it. Don't hesitate to do it, and we'll take it into account. Okay, yes.
One interesting thing, bagels, when I started picking them up 7 years ago,
Yeah.
cost $1.15. They're now $2.
Oh boy. Life is so stressful. I know you're so well. That's the way it is. I suppose one could infer from that that we ought to charge a little bit more for bagels, but I think we can handle the difference. I don't know that we want to raise the cost to you. It's not a lot of money, but if we raise it to $45-50, yike. Okay, but it's true. All of this is happening. So today, as some of you know, there is an adult B'nai Mitzvah beginning at 10:30, and we're going to be taking a picture with the class at 10:15. So we're going to stop today at 10:10. Let's see if I can do that. Yeah. Well, if I'm not in the picture, that's forever. You can Photoshop it, right? So I'm gonna try to be a good citizen in that regard as well. Okay, so our blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. We praise you, Lord, our God, sovereign of the universe, who sanctifies us through God's commandments, enjoining upon us the obligation to immerse ourselves in words of Torah. Amen. Okay, I neglected before our blessing to mention those who contributed to today. Bagel sponsors, Sandra and Ivan Kramer. Thank you so much. Somebody want to call them and tell them they got an applause? And the bagel pickup, Nancy and Russell Ben-Ghiat. Thank you so much. Okay, excellent. So our portion for this morning begins the fifth and final book of the Torah, the book of Deuteronomy. There's a lot to say about it in general. One of the interesting kind of sidebars on this is that the Torah portion for today, the Haftorah portion, continues as the number 3 of the 10 Haftarot between the 17th of Tammuz, which we observed a couple of weeks ago, which denotes the breaching of the walls in Jerusalem in 586. Tisha B'Av is this coming Wednesday and Thursday, I believe. And we read another Haftorah portion as well as Echa, the book of Lamentations. Echa means how, but one wants to think of it in terms of how could this have happened? Echa. And I think it's worth looking at these Haftarot. So, if you have a Jewish Publication Society Bible, it is in your Bibles on page, is it 2034? That may be me. Mine is at the end in this in Hebrew English. Yours is at the beginning. So it's page Roman numeral 10X, Roman numeral 10, and I want to take a look at these Haftarot. So what we have, beginning a couple of weeks ago, are the prophets fall into 2 basic categories. Divrei tochachot, words of chastisement, and divrei tanchumim, words of consolation. And the 10 Haftarot between the 17th of Tammuz and Yom Kippur trace the development from chastisement to comfort. So if you have the table of contents, you see here that the 2 last Torah portions of Numbers, Matot and Mas'eh, are Jeremiah chapter 1 and Jeremiah chapter 2, both of which are chapters of chastisement. Jeremiah is rebuking the people. The Haftorah portion for this Shabbat, Devarim, the first portion of Deuteronomy, is Isaiah chapter 1, which is also a rebuke of the people. So between the 17th and Tammuz, which is the penultimate action against the temple, against Jerusalem and the temple, and Tisha B'Av, which is the ultimate action, the destruction of the temple, and the final exile of the people, those 3 Haftarot trace the first 3 of the 10 weeks between the 17th of Tammuz and Yom Kippur. Then if you'll look ahead to next week, Va'et Hanan, you see the Torah portion is Deuteronomy 3, verse 23 through chapter 7:11. Do you see that? But the Haftorah portion is Isaiah 40. And the next Torah portions, how many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The next 7 weeks, 3 plus 7, the 10 weeks between the 17th of Tammuz and Yom Kippur. The last 7 are all Haftorah portions of comfort. Nachamu, Nachamu et Ami, the beginning of Isaiah 40, which, according to modern scholarship, is the beginning of the second Isaiah. The first Isaiah is the Isaiah of Jerusalem, who lived in Jerusalem before the destruction of the temple. The second Isaiah is the Isaiah of the exile. So here we have the prophet in exile, the people having been defeated. And there are basically 2 moods that can be promoted. Despair, it's over, or comfort. It only looks like it's over, but it's not over. We will receive the good news, the good word of bringing the people back. And the Isaiah of the exile is Isaiah chapter 40 through 55. So all but the last 2 Haftarot, which are Isaiah 60 and Isaiah 61, Isaiah 56 to 66, I think it is the Isaiah of the restoration. So according to modern scholarship, there are three different authors or authorial schools that encompass the book of Isaiah. Before the destruction, in the exile, after the restoration. And Isaiah 40 through 54 is all the second Isaiah, all comfort. So the Haftorah portions enclose a unit of the people's history and also the repetition down through the ages of that transformation from destruction to comfort and restoration. On the assumption, we read that we have read this throughout the centuries, is that despair is not the final word, that there is comfort that follows, okay? So this is both a reflection of those years, let's say 620, through the restoration, which was in 540 and beyond, rebuilding of the temple in 515. Those 100 years can be organized, outlined in terms of those two concepts: destruction, potential despair, but hope that transcends the despair. But also, as is so often the case, a particular era, a particular set of years, is in a way lifted out of its historical context and laid over the subsequent history of the Jewish people. That this is the pattern we can expect. What looks like the end, the dark night of the soul and the people, is not the end. There will be comfort, restoration, revitalization. Okay? So we have here both the tracing of a particular set of years and also a paradigm for how to understand the history of our people over time. You can see how powerful an idea this is. Every single year, reading this set of Haftarot and recognizing the pattern and asking oneself, 12th century Bologna, 13th century Mainz, and so on. This is what we can expect too, because the Torah is the blueprint. Torah in a broad sense. Torah is wisdom, not just the 5 books of Moses. That this is the blueprint of Jewish history to come. I doubt if the authors had that sense, but those who organized the Tanakh, and certainly those who interpreted it down through the ages, have tried to make it quite clear that this is also a pattern. Mike?
Did the rabbis debate whether despair and comfort are collectively exhaustive? That is, that those are the only two alternatives?
You know what? I don't know the answer to that. Mike's question is this pattern, binary pattern, of despair and comfort, the only two basic categories that the rabbis invoke? My guess is no, but in terms of temporality, as opposed to the life of the people themselves, I imagine the notion of Torah, of wisdom, is another major category in terms of the comfort of the people. It might be a subcategory of comfort. But in terms, despair, I was going to say despair and comfort are the two basic moods of the historical process, but that's overstated. Jim?
There's something I've been wondering, and that is, from the time we first got into the Promised Land, and there was exiles and so forth, weren't there always physically some Hebrews, Jews there?
Beforehand?
No.
What are you saying?
Once we got there,
I see.
I'm asking, I don't know. Weren't there always some physical presence?
So you're saying that even in the eras of exile, that the land, this is a question, was the land emptied of the people? That's your question? Or were there people remaining there?
Yeah, I don't know the answer, but I sense there was some there the whole time.
Look, I think certainly the Tanakh makes it very clear that there were people there from the point of view of the Tanakh, because the prophets of the exile, and certainly Ezra and Nehemiah, who bring the people back, are going to be asking the question, in which group does the continuity of the people reside? Is it the people who stayed there, whether voluntarily or by accident, or the people who are returning? I think it's fair to say, I preface it with that because I think I'm right, but I don't know that it's a uniform position. I think Ezra and Nehemiah say those who return from the exile are the true Jews. They are from basically the tribe of Judah, right? The 12 tribes are divided into two uneven units, the 10 northern tribes, which are exiled by the Assyrians when they were defeated in 722. And we've talked about this on occasion. The Assyrian view of how to deal with a defeated people is to scatter them so that there's no way that they can recompose themselves as a corporate unit. Hence the 10 lost tribes, which is a function of, a result of the Assyrian view. The Babylonian view is that you exile the people as a corporate whole, and you allow them to continue their life, albeit in exile. Hence the return. There's no return from the Assyrian exile because the people are lost to history, or at least lost to Jewish history. I'm sure their descendants wouldn't consider themselves lost. The Persian view of exile, because after all, in 540, Cyrus the Great defeated the Babylonians and created the Persian Empire. And the Persian Empire was an expansive empire. And in order to protect the boundaries of an increasingly expanding empire, you needed to have peoples who are sympathetic to the empire, but also serve as a buffer against invasion. So the Persians, their view was you return exiles to their land on the condition that they promise fidelity to the empire. Now, that's not Isaiah's view. Isaiah's view is that God felt that the time of punishment is up and the people can now return to the land. I think Cyrus would have been surprised to hear that that's the reason. His reason was the reason of realpolitik. I need an expanding empire. I don't have enough soldiers on my own to send to the boundaries of an expanding empire. I need sympathetic peoples, okay? So it's starting in 540 that the return can begin, and the first unit begins pretty much right there and rebuilds the temple in 515. So the ideology of that time, at least Ezra and Nehemiah, is that the true Jews are the returning Jews. The tribe of Judah, the only tribe left after the 10 lost tribes and Benjamin being absorbed into Judah. And from Yehudah, we get Yehudim. That tribe are the real Jews. And it's quite clear that there were conflicts between those who returned and those who stayed. Who are the true Jews? So I think the answer, at least the Bible's answer, maybe history's as well, is that there were people there. I think it's also the case that the Babylonians exiled the leaders, the vanguard of the people, so that they could take the leadership emphasis away. So I think that's the answer to that question. Yeah. Other questions? Okay, so what I'd like to do here before we take a look at Deuteronomy is to read something from Jonathan Sacks' commentary on the book of Deuteronomy. So what I want to do here is to look at page, you don't have it, but I'm going to page 19. Okay, so Sacks' commentaries take each portion and then divide his discussion into 3, 4, 5, 6 different subchapters, topics. So here is topic 1 from his commentary on Devarim. It's not a preface, it's in Devarim itself. And the title is The Teacher as Hero. So, he says, imagine the following scenario. You are 119 years and 11 months old. The end of your life is in sight. Your hopes have received devastating blows. You've been told by God that you will not enter the land to which you have been leading your people for 40 years. You have been repeatedly criticized by the people you have led. Your sister and brother, with whom you shared the burdens of leadership, have predeceased you. And you know that neither of your children, Gershom or Eliezer, will succeed you. Your life seems to be coming to a tragic end. Your destination unreached, your aspirations unfulfilled. What do you do? Okay. That's a nice setup for what Moses does here. We can imagine, Sacks goes on to say, a range of responses. You could sink into sadness, reflecting on the might have beens had the past taken a different direction. Or you could continue to plead with God to change his mind and let you cross the Jordan. Or you could retreat into memories of the good times, when the people sang a song at the Red Sea, when they gave their assent to the covenant at Sinai, when they built the tabernacle. These would be the normal human reactions. Moses did none of these things. And what he did instead helped change the course of Jewish history. For a month, Moses convened the people on the far side of the Jordan and addressed them. Those addresses form the substance of the book of Deuteronomy. Okay? So we also make the point that Deuteronomy is the most rhetorical of the 5 books of Moses. Rhetoric being the attempt to persuade people. Okay? So these are addresses that are attempts to persuade people at this crisis moment in the history of the people. For a month, Moses convened the people on the far side of the Jordan and addressed them. Those addresses form the substance of the book of Deuteronomy. They are extraordinarily wide-ranging, covering a history of the past, a set of prophecies and warnings about the future, laws, narratives, a song, and a set of blessings. And interesting, I'm going to pause from time to time, because if rhetoric is the art of persuasion, we might feel the need to utilize different genres of speech in order to persuade people of different predilections. Some people are more responsive to music, to poetry, some to lists, some to narrative. So by saying that Moses uses a variety of approaches, a history of the past, a set of prophecies and warnings about the future, laws, narratives, a song, and a set of blessings, is illustration of the fact that this is a book of rhetoric, among other things. How do I persuade a diverse audience? Together they constitute the most comprehensive, profound vision of what it is to be a holy people, dedicated to God, constructing a society that would stand as a role model for humanity in how to combine freedom and order, justice and compassion, individual dignity and collective responsibility. Didn't you wish you wrote that sentence? I do. Over and above what Moses said in the last month of his life, though, is what Moses did. He changed career. He shifted his relationship with the people. No longer Moses the liberator, the lawgiver, the worker of miracles, the intermediary between the Israelites and God. He became the figure known to Jewish memory, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses our rabbi, or Moses our teacher. That is how Deuteronomy begins, quote, Moses began to expound this law, okay? Deuteronomy 1, verse 5, using the verb be'er, that we have not encountered in this sense in the Torah, and which appears only one more time toward the end of the book, namely, chapter 27, and you shall write very clearly, be'er hetev, all the words of this law on these stones. He wanted to explain, expound, make clear. He wanted the people to understand that Judaism is not a religion of mysteries, intelligible only to the few. It is, as he would say in his very last speech, an inheritance of the entire congregation of Jacob. Moses became, in the last month of his life, the master educator. In these addresses, he does more than tell the people what the law is. He explains to them why the law is. There is nothing arbitrary about it. The law is as it is because of the people's experience of slavery and persecution in Egypt, which was their tutorial in why we need freedom and law-governed liberty. Now, isn't that great? Law-governed liberty. In another place, I think it's Sachs who says, the Jewish view, the biblical view, is not freedom to do what you like, but freedom to do what you ought. Law-governed liberty. The law is as it is because the people's experience of slavery and persecution in Egypt. I mean, this is quite amazing, isn't it? The story of the Exodus becomes the basis of normative religion. You were slaves in Egypt, you were strangers, therefore. Paul?
One of the things that strikes me about Rabbi Sachs is his constant referral to how often Judaism invokes memory.
Yeah, sure.
And
Yeah.
everything he's talking about here is about, no matter what you do, remember.
Yeah.
Remember your past, remember where you came from. And we're not, we're obligated and encouraged to never forget.
Great, as an imperative. Right. I want to remember there are people watching live stream, so I'm going to try to repeat the questions, at which I'll fail, but I'm going to try here. So Paul made the point that Rabbi Sachs constantly in his writings reminds us about the imperative to remember. Remember you were slaves in Egypt. Don't forget. Remember, and so on. And what is interesting, I think there are 36 uses of the word zachor in its various forms in the 5 books of Moses. In every one of them, remember is not just a cognitive gesture. Just keep in mind that you were slaves in Egypt. No. But therefore, remember the stranger, care for the widow and the orphan. So remember is not just a mental gesture. It's the grounding for an imperative. Paul, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I'm looking at an old commentary I had
Yes?
years gone by, and Sachs actually cites Zachor 169 times
Oh, is that true?
in the Bible.
Okay, maybe in the Bible. The number I have is 36, but it's been a long time since I checked that out. There may be,
In that book.
well, I know, I think in the 5 books of Moses. That's how I would say it, but I haven't looked for many, many years, and it may be closer to your number. Yeah, right. So the imperative of remembering, or what some scholars call a usable past. The past is not just past, but the past is always present and future. What's his name said that? Who? The author, Absalom, Faulkner, in his Nobel Prize speech. The past is not just past, it's present. He says it much more potently than I just have. But that's that idea. Moses became the master educator. Now, so I've already done that. We need freedom and law-governed liberty. Time and again he says, you shall do this because you were slaves in Egypt. They must remember and never forget, 2 verbs that appear repeatedly in the book, where they came from, what it felt like to be exiled, persecuted, and powerless. In Lin-Manuel Miranda's musical Hamilton, George Washington tells the young, hot-headed Alexander Hamilton, dying is easy, young man, living is harder. In Deuteronomy, Moses keeps telling the Israelites, in effect, slavery is easy, freedom is harder. Throughout Deuteronomy, Moses reaches a new level of authority and wisdom. For the first time, we hear him speak extensively in his own voice, rather than merely as the transmitter of God's words to him. His grasp of vision and detail is faultless. He wants the people to understand that the laws God has commanded them are for their good, not just God's. Okay, so the law is not only from God, the law also has utility. It's not limited to utility because of its origin, but the law is to be deployed to make society better. All ancient peoples had gods. All ancient peoples had laws, but their laws were not from a god. They were from the king, pharaoh, or ruler, as in the famous law code of Hammurabi. I'm not sure this is true. Would Hammurabi say that he got the laws from Marduk? Can't remember. Anybody know anything about that? I'm not sure Hammurabi would have said these laws emerge only from me, but I don't know. The gods of the ancient world were seen as a source of power, not justice. Laws were man-made rules for the maintenance of social order. The Israelites were different. Their laws were not made by kings. Monarchy in ancient Israel was unique in endowing the king with no legislative powers. Their laws came directly from God himself, creator of the universe and liberator of his people. In a way, those are God's credentials, we might say. In other words, the whole purpose of the first 70 chapters of the Bible, 50 of Genesis, 19 of Exodus, before we get to the Sinai in chapter 20, are to create God's credentials for his ability to legislate law. The people might have said to God, and the rabbis work with this idea, who are you to tell us what to do? Well, folks, read the first 69 chapters of the Bible, and I'll tell you who I am. Okay? So there's a bit of political philosophy here, isn't there? What is it that authorizes the power to legislate, or power at all? Is power legitimate or is it illegitimate? Well, it depends on how it was created. And the Torah is suggesting the way in which the Sinai laws and beyond were created. Their laws came directly from God himself, creator of the universe and liberator of his people. Hence Moses' ringing declaration, observe these laws carefully, for this will show your wisdom and understanding to the nations, who will hear about all these decrees and say, quoting Deuteronomy chapter 4, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. That's a really powerful idea. It's not that we will say, we are a wise and understanding people. The nations of the world, when they hear about our laws, without any partisan favoritism, will see inherently that the laws are the products of wisdom. Now, you can well imagine that a rationalist like Maimonides makes a great deal out of this comment. This, for Maimonides, is the authorization of philosophy as a fundamental activity of normative Judaism, to understand the laws, the rules, as arenas of wisdom. And the Guide for the Perplexed is an attempt to do it. So let's go back there. Their laws came directly from God himself, creator of the universe and liberator of his people. Hence Moses' ringing declaration, observe these laws carefully, for this will show your wisdom and understanding to the nations, who will hear about these decrees and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 6. At this defining moment in his life, Moses understood that though he would not be physically with the people when they entered the promised land, he could still be with them intellectually and emotionally if he gave them the teachings to take with them into the future. Moses became the pioneer of perhaps the single greatest contribution to the concept of leadership, the idea of teacher as hero. Heroes are people who demonstrate courage in the field of battle. What Moses knew was that the most important battles are not military, they are spiritual, moral, cultural. A military victory shifts the pieces on the chessboard of history. A spiritual victory changes lives. A military victory is almost always short-lived. Either the enemy attacks again, or a new and more dangerous opponent appears. But spiritual victories can, if their lesson is not forgotten, last forever. Even quite ordinary people, for example, Samson, can be military heroes, but those who teach people to see, to feel, to act differently, who enlarge the moral horizons of humankind, are rare indeed. Of these, Moses was the greatest. Not only does he become, that's Sachs's emphasis, italicized he, not only does he become the leader, become the teacher in Deuteronomy, in the words engraved on Jewish hearts ever since, he tells the entire people that they must become a nation of educators. You see the transition here? And here are some examples of the people as the descendants of Moses as educator. Make known to your children and your children's children how you once stood before the Lord your God at Horeb. Or teach these words diligently to your children, speaking of them when you sit at home, when you travel on the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. Or in the future, when your child asks, what's the meaning of the testimonies, decrees, laws that the Lord our God has commanded, tell him, we were slaves to the Pharaoh in Egypt, but the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. Or teach them to your children, speaking of them when you sit at home, when you travel on the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. Okay. The people as educators, the family dinner table. All of those passages, of course, are from Deuteronomy, which is the book of the education, the transformation of the people to educators. Indeed, the last two commands Moses gave the Israelites were explicitly educational in nature. To gather the entire people together in the 7th year, to hear the Torah being read, to remind them of their covenant with God, Deuteronomy 31, and write down for yourselves this song and teach it to the people of Israel, again, chapter 31. Understood as the command that each person must write for himself a scroll of the law, which is still invoked today in traditional communities. Not that everybody is capable of writing a Torah scroll, but one can authorize an agent, a sofer, a scribe, to do it in his or her stead. Okay?
Just a quick comment.
Yep.
What's so beautiful about all this, I'm not sure this was mentioned last night in the sermon, but this weekend, the Odyssey is being released, and then this is our Odysseus, not to diminish Moses' at all. I mean, like, you know, this is our Jewish hero, contrasted with the Greek, the Greek train of thought of Odysseus. I think this is wonderful.
So in contrast,
Yeah, in contrast, yes.
so what does that mean? I mean, what kind of hero is Odysseus?
Well, I guess, okay, so maybe I should have thought this through a little bit more. Because there is military, there are military campaigns in the Torah. I guess our hero is this teacher, that's our leadership, that's, our citadels, our schools, maybe. Sachs says that as well.
No.
And I feel like maybe, compared to the story of the Odyssey, which I thought, falls on this Shabbat, I was seeing some type of
Contrast.
train of thought, but maybe I should have sat on it a little bit longer before I opened my mouth.
No, it's an interesting, that's another one of our cultural heroes is Odysseus. I certainly don't see them as in contrast. Think of Odysseus just for a minute. The guy wanted more than anything else in the world to get home. And he travels 10 years. And one of the glories of the Odyssey is the creativity of Homer. All of these, you remember he goes into the one-eyed monster's cave, Polyphemus, and he's going to be eaten by Polyphemus. And he stuns him and pokes out his eye. And Polyphemus says, "What is your name?" You remember this episode? And he says, "My name is no one." And so when Polyphemus yells help to his co-monsters, they say to him, "Who is assaulting you?" And he says, "No one is assaulting me." So not only does Odysseus yearn for home, but he is consummately clever at dealing with all of the misfortunes and problems of life. He stays with Calypso, I think, for 8 of the 10 years. And finally he says to her, this is big. She promises immortality, you remember that? And he says, I've got a wife at home. I have to get home. So, look, this is also one of the founding narratives of Western civilization. course, once he gets home and he slays the suitors, and you remember this glorious idea, she doesn't recognize him. He's been gone 20 years. She asks him for what do you know? You remember what he says, what he tells her? Tells her about the bed, their marital bed, which is carved from the trunk of a tree. Now, only an intimate would know that. So this is also his cleverness and Homer's cleverness, too. No, I mean, it's true. It's a different kind of culture, perhaps, but you know, the ancient historian Herodotus, who was a younger contemporary of Thucydides, said about Homer and Hesiod. Hesiod was a great poet as well. That Homer and Hesiod taught the Greeks their gods. So these poets are also the foundation layers of Greek society, ancient Greek society, which is one of the glories of Western civilization. Quite different, quite different. Yeah. There's a wonderful essay, Odysseus' Scar, Eric Auerbach. Anybody know that essay? Where he contrasts the biblical narrative and Greek narrative. And I think what he says is something like the Greek narratives have a glittering, very potent surface, but the biblical narrative points deep into the meaning below the surface. I'm not sure Auerbach is glorifying one over the other. He's just talking about two different ways of understanding literature as a foundation of culture. Anyway, thanks for the comment. Yeah. Yes. You know, okay. So we're looking forward to seeing the Odyssey. I'm going to point to one more ancient source, and that is Aristotle in the Poetics makes a distinction between drama and epic. Drama essentially is one strong narrative line, whereas an epic is the confluence of many, many, many stories. And a dramatist should not want to do what the epic does, because the drama would fail through dissipation. Well, this movie makes a drama out of an epic. This is exactly what Aristotle warned the dramatist against. So it's going to be interesting to see, because it's hard to get the unities of drama in an epic. Yeah. There's more to be said, but I'll stop. Yeah, Mike?
Just quickly, in common, Odysseus and Moses, in my view, both have unwavering faith. And Odysseus never despairs, really. He's always thinking there's a way. There's a way.
Yeah, no, very good. Very good.
Okay, I have.
That's a good point,
four
actually.
Points. I have 4 thoughts at the same time. One is you're talking about the laws being given by God directly to the people.
Right.
There's no king, right? And so I'm thinking about the divine right of kings, which is a later invention by the kings to try to rationalize their authority.
That may be in the Bible itself. After all, it's God who authorizes Samuel to crown the first king.
Well, but that's only because the people asked God for a king after he said you don't need one.
Okay.
That was my second thought.
Okay.
The book of Samuel.
Yes.
And then he gives them a stumble bone as king, almost to show them they don't need one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a trivial position. Okay, then the third one, I got derailed by Odysseus here.
As he is wont to do.
All right, well, I'll have to take it up with you afterwards.
No, those two are very interesting. Yeah, right. David is certainly elevated.
Oh, I know. from a literary standpoint, Moses can't take them into the promised land. He has to, because otherwise the laws become embodied in him. And in effect, what he's saying is, what's important is not me, it's the laws. And so it's almost like he has to die before they get there, so that what they take with them is the important part, which is the laws, not some worship of an idol, which is what he would become if he went with them.
Nice. I like that. And I think the Midrash points that out too, that if Moses went into the promised land, he would be elevated beyond the level he should be. Now, that's great. That's great. In the Midrash, Moses fights and fights to get in there. He even says to God, according to one Midrash, look, I'm willing to go in as a cow. I just want to fulfill the mission. God says, yeah, nice try. He also says, we've talked about this before, let me go in as Joshua's assistant. If I can't be the boss, I'll go in as Joshua's right-hand man, to which God says, well, let's try it. So the next morning, he goes with Joshua to the tent of meeting to consult with God, as Joshua accompanied him to go to the tent of meeting. And just as when they got to the door, Moses would say to Joshua, wait outside. I'm the one who talks to God. So when this experiment takes place and they get to the door, and Joshua, now in the place of Moses, says to Moses, wait outside. Moses realizes, I can't handle this. So Moses, as happens in the Torah itself, importunes God over and over again. Finally, in chapter 3, God says to him, enough. No more petitioning for it. This is my decree. But, in a certain way, it's a kind of a counterpart to the Odysseus story. Odysseus gets home. Moses wants to get home, so to speak. He's not been there before. Well, he's been there before, I guess. But no, he hasn't been there before. But wants to go, but doesn't get home. Gosh, there must be something deep there. The Greek hero gets home, the Jewish hero doesn't. I don't know. Let's go on a little bit. In Deuteronomy, a new word enters the biblical vocabulary. The verb lamed mem daled, limud, meaning to learn or to teach. Lamad, limaid. The verb does not appear even once in Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, or Numbers. In Deuteronomy, it appears 17 times. There was nothing like this concern for universal education elsewhere in the ancient world. Jews became the people whose heroes were teachers, whose citadels were schools, and whose passion was study and the life of the mind. Moses's, and by the way, some of the early Zionists, especially the pioneers, had a very different view of this. We have been Luftmenschen. We have excelled at study. Now we need to return to a normal life. And one of the foundations of normal life is developing intimacy with the land, the soil. This is what brings us into the real physical world and creates the foundations for possession of the land. There's this poem, is it by Bialik, Hamasmid, the eternal student, which I think he celebrates but also worries about. So, Moses' end-of-life transformation is one of the most interesting, inspiring in all religious history. In that one act, he redeemed his career from tragedy. He became a leader not for his time only, but for all time. His body didn't accompany his people as they entered the land, but his teachings did. His sons did not succeed him, but his disciples did. He may have felt that he had not changed his people in his lifetime, but in the full perspective of history, he changed them more than any leader has ever changed any people, turning them into the people of the book and the nation who built not ziggurats or pyramids, but schools and houses of study. The poet Shelley famously said, "Poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world." In truth, though, it is not poets but teachers who shape society, handing on the legacy of the past to those who build the future. That insight sustained Judaism for longer than any other civilization, and it began with Moses in the last month of his life. Elegantly put, but I would contend against that. I mean, didn't Homer and Hesiod also create civilization? And not just the Torah. So they're poets who created the terms of a civilized society. Okay, don't you think that's a magnificent description of the power of Deuteronomy and Moses? So let's turn in the minutes that we have to chapter 1 of Deuteronomy. I can find it. Anybody have the page? Okay. So, these are the words that Moses addressed. Ele hadvarim. So, these are the words, and from that we get the name of the book, Devarim, which is from the first significant word of the first sentence, a verse of the Torah. And Ele, and these, is too indistinct, too often repeated a word to be the name of a book. These are the words that Moses addressed to all Israel on the other side of the Jordan. Notice, that's so interesting, isn't it? That means the perspective of the author is the land of Israel itself. Because Moses wouldn't call this the other side of the Jordan unless he was taking a big synoptic view of it. These are the words that Moses addressed to all Israel on the other side of the Jordan, through the wilderness, in the Arava, near Suf, between Paran, Tophel, Lavan, and Chatzerot di Zahab. It's 11 days from Horeb to Kadesh Barnea by the Mount Seir route. How interesting is that? The trip is less than 2 weeks. It took them 40 years because of the episodes that we understand. It was in the 40th year, on the first day of the 11th month, that Moses addressed the Israelites in accordance with the instructions that the Lord had given him for them. After he had defeated Sichon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon, and King Og of Bashan, who dwelt in Ashtaroth and Edrei. On the other side of the Jordan, in the land of Moab, Moses undertook to expound this teaching, and that's what Sachs points to. Moshe Be'er expounded, et ha-Torah hazot lemor. Okay, so the Torah seems to be here Deuteronomy. But, of course, it becomes the 5 books of Moses, and more broadly still, it becomes the word that denotes teaching. So Deuteronomy becomes kind of a kernel of the larger development of Torah, taken more globally. And notice the first paragraph lays the stage, the scene, place, time, and so on. Who was defeated, what happened at the end of the book of Numbers, those wars at the end of Numbers. The Lord, our God, spoke to us at Chorev, which is, as we know, is the other word for Sinai, a synonym. And also denotes 2 sources. One uses Chorev as Mount Sinai, the other uses Sinai. You have stayed long enough at this mountain. Start out and make your way to the hill country of the Amorites and to all their neighbors in the Arava. Just to pause here, The Amorites is the Deuteronomy's word for the inhabitants of the land. As I think Alter points out, the Amorites are the people who live in the eastern part of the land of Israel, and therefore the first people that the Israelites face when they cross the Jordan River, from which they might infer that the land is populated by Amorites only. So again, verse 7, start out and make your way to the hill country of the Amorites and to all their neighbors in the Arava, the hill country, the Shephelah, the Negev, the seacoast, the land of the Canaanites, and the Lebanon. The Lebanon is not Lebanon, but the mountain range. As far as the great river, the river Euphrates, okay? In the intimation being, from this point of view, the eastern boundary of what comes to be the land of Israel is the Euphrates, and it was never in the history of Israel that far east. See, I place the land at your disposal. Go take possession of the land that the Lord swore to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to assign to them and to their heirs after them. Which is, I think, rhetorically very, very moving, that this is an invocation of the very first moment of the book of Genesis, of Abraham, when God promises him the land to you and to your descendants. So Moses is creating a panorama of this history. One of the crucial moments was the promise to Abraham, which is the promise still. Verse 8 again, see, I place the land at your disposal. Go take possession of the land that the Lord swore to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to assign to them and to their heirs after them. Thereupon I said to you, I cannot bear the burden of you by myself. The Lord your God has multiplied you until you are today as numerous as the stars in the sky. May the Lord, the God of your fathers, increase your numbers 1,000-fold and bless you as he promised you. This is sort of an interesting moment, because what he is saying at the beginning of the verse, or in verse 9, I cannot bear the burden of you. You're too many for me. But the next verse says, may the Lord, the God of your fathers, increase your number 1,000-fold. You think you've been badgered by X number of people. If God multiplies your number 1,000-fold, oh, am I going to be in trouble? And my sense here is that Moses moves from verse 9 to indicate the burden that he has carried by himself because of the people. And we've seen in the book of Numbers many occasions of rebellion against Moses. And then at the end of verse 9, he says to himself, wait a minute now. I really have to re-invoke the desire for multitudes. I'm sort of sorry that I said you all burdened me. Now I'm going to rectify this. May God fulfill his promise. How, verse the 12, can I bear unaided the trouble of you? By the way, in my translation, maybe in yours, verse 11 is bounded by brackets, as if it's a detour in his thinking, because he goes back in verse 12 to what he said in verse 10. How can I bear unaided the trouble of you and the burden and the bickering? Pick from each of your tribes men who are wise, discerning, and experienced, and I will appoint them as your heads. Okay, so interesting moment. This is a reminiscence of what happened back in Exodus chapter 18, you remember? And how, where we get the reason for the appointment of subsidiary judges. Who initiated that moment? Jethro. And what were the terms, the qualifications of the people? They should be wise and God-fearing. Okay? Here, who initiates it? Moses. And the terms are wise, discerning, and experienced. No reference of piety. I don't know what to make of that, except as a speculation. The book of Deuteronomy in some ways secularizes. It's trying to create a society of people who are able to work together. Of course, God is everywhere present, but here I think it's interesting that the idea of piety is not here as one of the qualifications.
Except that Jethro was a priest.
Jethro was a priest, very good. So that gets into his recommendation. Very good point. The word Deuteronomy means the second giving, the second law, or the repetition of the law, or the copy of the law. In Deuteronomy 17, the king is enjoined to write a copy, Mishnah Torah, HaTorah, Hazot, so that you might think of Deuteronomy as a repetition, even a slavish repetition of what went before. But here is an intimation that Deuteronomy also, we might say, corrects or changes. In the guise of repetition, change is taking place. It's an interesting move. Steve?
In this verse, it doesn't talk about God-fearing. Maybe the authors of Deuteronomy understand that now we have a priesthood, and their responsibility is in that realm. So the judges, they're sort of creating a division, and Jethro was making that point. The priesthood only existed in its barest form.
Interesting. So the people, and we do know that the priests were taken from the firstborn, supplanted by a group. So here we still have the priesthood among the people. I like that interpretation very much. Russell?
Third perspective is that the only experienced leaders would be the ones that were appointed previously who were God-fearing, so that picking the creme de la creme.
Then,
But no, originally, only God-fearing leaders.
Yes.
Now, we're looking for only experienced leaders.
yes.
All the experienced leaders were God-fearing from the previous appointment.
I'm not sure I'm following what you're saying. Okay, so the first Jethro's,
First group were all God-fearing.
yes.
But not experienced.
The only people now who have experience as leaders are God-fearing people.
Oh, I see what you're
They were
saying.
selected the first time.
You don't need to say it.
Yeah.
Is that your point?
We're just picking the better ones.
Okay, good. Nice. I got to run. I'm sorry. To be continued. The book of Deuteronomy. Okay. Talk among yourselves.
Just a personal shortcut. We talked about this. I would like somebody to explain to me the relationship between classical culture and Jewish culture. Because I have no doubt that there's a lot of civilization. And yeah, it's almost like we're separate.
Well, there's more there. Much bigger. There's the people of the city. By some historians. We're Greek.
Yeah.
So we have this cultures.
We also know, for example, that Alexander appropriated a lot of culture from the places that he conquered. And there was, but that's still part of the Greek culture. So, yeah. I didn't appreciate
What's funny though, because the guy in the corner just was beautiful in his garden, he's really good at it. And the next day, and my wife tried to tell him,
teens-ish, and one has many medical problems, and he's a little person, I don't wanna say that he's a dwarf or a midget, or he's a little person, but he has a lot of medical problems. The other person, the other teen, is being raised by his grandparents. He's this big hulking kid who doesn't interact with people. You know, he goes into his room, which is in the basement, and that's just, and the two of them create this friendship. To take two people who look so different, you can't just say, okay, well, Jonathan, you're gonna play this character, and you're gonna play that.
Right.
That's not believable. The show was just fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, it's exciting, it was so good, we loved it,
Yeah.
you just want to see something like this do well, I think it was, I think it was gonna do well.
Oh,
Hopefully, so that's what I'm hearing, so,
fantastic. So you're the playhouse?
yes, yeah, I don't get education, so I don't get the, sometimes I get the crossover stuff with some of the shows, but I mostly get education.
Oh, fantastic. Well, see,
Yeah, so I wanted to share with you, so I heard that yesterday.
well, that's bad.
That's very cool. Oh.
So we can say we saw it before anyone.
Well, I've left Mal, or Mal's left me.
Well, whatever,
Yeah,
whatever.
you're right, right.
Good talking with you, good.
Here.
And give my best man.
Oh, I will, Matthew.
This was fun this morning. It was short, but it was fun. It was fun.
Yes.